Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Michael McBride, and I'm joined by our dynamic duo of psychologists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride, and as always, I am joined by my business partner and friend, Daniel Kessler. Welcome.
I'm so glad to be here this morning, Dr. McBride, and looking forward to whatever exciting conundrum Michael brings us this week.
Yeah, well, welcome both of you. This one hits home in a different way, and it'll be interesting, again, to kind of see what kind of stories come out of it. But
immediately my anxiety goes up a little bit. Like, what does he have?
Yeah, what does he have?
It's okay.
What am I going to have to confess to in terms of being like a real human outside of my, sort of more blank therapist space?
That's a whole interesting discussion too about like, should therapists provide that blank space? Should we provide some additional like information? How much of ourselves do we bring to the counseling session? Yeah. But that's for another time.
That's a whole other topic. But that's where my heart goes a little bit when he teases us like this.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I can't help myself. So anyway, for anyone new to the podcast, if you don't know what we're talking about, what we do is I cruise the internet and I find interesting conversations where readers pose a scenario and they essentially ask everyone, who's the asshole here? And that's what Dr. Dan and Dr. Gayle will hopefully figure out for us here. And if you're new, you should also stick around through the credits. We always have a bonus conversation of some kind. So, but neither nor Gayle or Dan have read this topic. So let's go. Today's prompt is, am I the asshole for embarrassing my brother-in-law by reprimanding my son for pissing all over the toilet?
What?
What? Wait, what?
I think I lost the thread through there.
Am I
the asshole for reprimanding my brother-in-law for my son?
For embarrassing the brother-in-law by reprimanding my son? Because it'll be clear.
No, I totally know where this is going.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so
I got it.
My family is at the house for a get-together since we all went our separate ways for Thanksgiving. So I guess this is older, but my sister's husband is a pig. He is overweight and perhaps cannot see his equipment in the toilet, so when he stands to urinate, it goes everywhere. Not great, but it'd be better if he at least cleaned up after himself. Instead, he leaves urine all over the seat, tank, and floor. At his house, my sister probably cleans up after him. I don't know, and I don't want to know. I was having similar problems with my son until I had his father teach him how to stand to pee and to clean up afterwards. My son still sits most of the time, and if he does sprinkle, he cleans up. I went to use the washroom after my brother-in-law came out, and it was disgusting. I've talked to him and my sister about it before, and nothing has changed. Fine, new plan. I marched out of the bathroom and told my son in a loud voice that he had to go clean his pee up since he sprayed everywhere and we have guests over. Exactly like I expected, my son spoke up and said it wasn't him that had used the bathroom, but it was his uncle who had just come out. Everyone went quiet, my brother-in-law went red, and my sister went into the bathroom to clean. I apologized to my son for the mistake. Afterwards, my sister said I was an asshole to embarrass her husband like that. I said that if an adult cannot piss properly or clean up after themselves, perhaps they should be embarrassed. Now we are fighting, and she says I owe them an apology. 2 questions. Do I owe them an apology? And am I the asshole?
You definitely owe an apology. We talked in our last recording about this concept that, Dan, you talked about, mens rea. Right. Yeah. It's the intention to cause harm before the action. And this writer, this poster, absolutely intended to cause some amount of harm. It was premeditated, if you will. She crafted the situation. That's problematic.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Well, let me say the different. You're absolutely right about the intent. And we're in Minnesota. And with apologies to any Minnesotans listening, this is the land of the passive aggressive. I'm not sure I'm not okay with this.
What?
Like,
You're okay with this?
well,
No.
it was wrong.
I am disappointed in you, Daniel Kessler.
It was wrong, but at the same time, I mean, this is a grown-ass man pissing on the seat. I mean, for those people who in our audience who are penis owners, like, it's one of the first lessons you learn after you learn how to go to the bathroom is how to, like, clean up after yourself, for crying out loud. And I mean, yeah, she was wrong. Okay.
She was absolutely wrong. I don't care if you live in the land of passive aggressive or not, you person up with whatever genitalia you have, whether it be ovary up or testicle up or whatever it is, and you have a quiet but discreet conversation. Hey, brother-in-law, I'm not sure if you realized, but you might want to go back into the bathroom.
Oh, he realized.
Of course, but you at least have a more direct conversation. You can assume positive intent. You can assume that this guy didn't realize and go in and clean it up. But you don't sacrifice your son. How old is this kid? He's like 6? Oh, come on. Talk about sacrificial lamb.
Okay, the son, I'm more distressed about the son thing than the brother-in-law thing. Like, I'm with you a little bit on the son, but she was like, "Oh gosh, I'm really sorry, honey. I didn't," because the son has been chastised for pissing on the seat before, and it might have been him.
No, because he had a streak of appropriate behavior.
Hear me out.
I disagree.
Hear me out, MacBride.
Okay, I will.
And I'm massaging the facts to suit my case here. But one of the things we need to do as parents is, from time to time, really be clear that we can admit when we're wrong. And it's something that parents do really badly sometimes. So the mom comes out and says, you need to go in there and clean that up. Hopefully not in an angry voice. Hopefully in a mom kind of like a, hey, can you go clean up after yourself? You know, that's how I'm picturing this. And he's like, I didn't do it, Mom. And the mom has a chance to say, oh, I am so sorry. Like, especially when it was really clear that the brother-in-law did it. And she has a chance to kind of like be wrong here and admit that. So I'm not happy with her, but I'm not so mad at her.
I hear you. I heard you out. I still think you are in the wrong. She knew. She set this up. It wasn't like some ownership of, oh, gee, I'm sorry I made the mistake, sweetie. It's like, I intended to make a mistake. I intended for you to react to me. This was crafted and calculated and not okay, because she is trying to make behavior change through shame. And shame never changes behavior. She's trying to shame the brother-in-law into changing the behavior. And I am never okay, because shame is not going to change behavior. Shame just sinks it down lower, and then everybody feels really bad and he feels unwelcome. Like, this is not a way to do a family dynamic at all. I staunchly disagree with you.
You're moving me on this a little bit.
Oh, good. I thought the shame word might.
Shame, yeah. I am troubled by that. But so here's a question as an aside here. I have always assumed, I don't think you and I have ever discussed this, maybe we have. I have always assumed that every human emotion exists because of some evolutionary process that made that emotion valuable.
We've not talked about this, but I 100% agree.
Great. So if we have anger, there's a reason to have anger. We have sadness. So anxiety exists to protect us and keep us safe, keep us from doing stupid shit that could make us dead. You know, all the, so shame must have a function.
It does. It absolutely does. Would you like to hear? Okay, then
yeah,
this is a standard conversation I have in my office.
All right.
Humans, we are deeply social, right? One of the things, we're going to do a little bit of a tangent here, or no, it's going to be circumstantial. I'm coming back to the point. I promise.
I get it.
So I really am warning Michael more than anybody.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So as a deeply social species, people often will say to me, oh, I know it's so stupid, but I care what so-and-so thinks. It's not stupid. We are deeply social species. We need to care what other people think. That's part of how we build those societies and those groups that we belong to. And we need to care, right? If we didn't care, we would be breeding psychopaths and society would fall apart. So that's important. And it's not ever to be trivialized. Shame, I believe, exists so that we have that internal regulator to say, this is okay, this is not okay, right? Shame is a I don't belong here kind of experience. And either that informs us to leave the group because I don't belong, or I have engaged in a behavior that is so wildly uncomfortable, I need to change my behavior.
There you go.
But
so what's wrong with her invoking this not
but I think that
like
has to be internal. I don't think it can be externally applied. I think rather than shame, and here is its close cousin and more productive, which is guilt.
Yeah.
I am bad versus I did something bad. She is trying to tell the brother-in-law, hey, look, you don't belong in this family. We're booting you out, which is a deep social threat for him, right? He's not going to show up at family function. He's not going to feel welcome. Hear me out. And so she is essentially putting him on the ice floe saying bye-bye, as opposed to invoking guilt. You're not bad. What you did was unacceptable. Changing it from an internal human, like a label of him as a whole person. He is a slob, she said.
So let me get this.
Opposed to he has bad and unclean habits. There's a difference.
Let me get this straight. So what you're saying is if she just guilted him, that would be okay, but because she shamed him, it's not.
Yes.
So how to guilt him without shaming him?
Look, whatever his name is,
and I think that private conversation shames him too.
Well, okay.
So
is shame intended by the interpersonal, the second person in the dyad, or is shame internal? Is he bringing up his own shame and working on his own shame? We don't have control over that. We have control over whether or not we are engaging in labeling and shaming outwardly, though, right? So I think a guilt-ridden conversation is, and I'm just going to use my brother-in-law's name because it's easier. Sorry, Ryan. So if I'm having this is no bearing on his behavior whatsoever.
Well, you're not the original poster here talking about your.
I am not the original poster, nor is my brother-in-law wildly obese, and nor do I know that he has trouble hitting the toilet. He's a conversation. Stick with me for a moment.
All right,
I might say to Ryan, hey, look, man, there is kind of a mess in the bathroom, and I'm sure you didn't mean to, but there's kind of pee all over the place. If I give you some rags, can you go back in and take care of that? And I'm addressing the behavior as opposed to, hey, man, you are a slob. Can't you get your fire hose under control, man? This is gross. Like, that's criticism. It's contempt. Fire hose,
you had no trouble. Never mind.
I'm assuming, right? Yeah. So, maybe prostate issues. I don't know how old this guy is, but
allow me to make your argument for you to some degree. We could argue that the brother-in-law probably isn't there all that often, and that if you don't want to shame him, because I don't think there's a way of doing this without shaming him. I think even the private conversation is still shaming. It's not publicly shaming him, but I don't think he's going to feel guilt. I think he's going to feel shame, whether it's in front of the whole group, which is intense shame, or private shame between the two of them. I don't think you're going to get to guilt on this one. And I suppose the argument could be made that the best course of action is just to this is just something about having my brother-in-law visit that I just will deal with. He clearly knows about it. The sister clearly knows about it because she just marches on in the bathroom and cleans up after him. I mean, I don't mean to say that I'm okay with her shaming him. I'm just not. I'm having trouble getting that angry at her. And I know I should. I know the right thing here is to get angry at her and say, you're wrong. You're an asshole. How dare you do that? I'm just struggling to do this when a grown-ass man's pissing all over the seat. Like I'm not saying it's justified, but I'm struggling with being all that mad at her. It's sort of like the jury that says, yeah, they did it, but I'm going to vote not guilty anyway. The jury, the concept of, we're back to forensics here, the concept of the jury pardon, where the jury says, yeah, I mean, you broke the law, but I'm going to vote not guilty anyway because I'm kind of okay with you breaking the law in this case. That was my first forensic case. Actually, my very first forensic case was that sort of a thing where the I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but that the jury kind of except it wasn't a jury part, and the prosecutor said, yeah, victim guy, the guy kind of deserved it, so we'll cut the defendant some slack, and and this is the sort of thing I'm thinking, like I'm willing to cut she's guilty, she's wrong, but I'm not willing to call her an asshole. Like, I'm giving her a bit of a jury pardon here.
Wow. Well, then she is best in front of you than me. I think I would feel more flexible about this, except she brought her kid into this.
Mm,
I really just am
I get
not
that.
okay with a mother putting her child in between. That's icky to me, and I don't like it. I'm going to say, well, I will withhold my judgment, but my biggest problem is not only that she used public shame, but she used her kid to do it.
I'm more upset about that. I found a way to mitigate it in my head to make it okay. Massaging the facts to fit my own desire to give her a jury pardon. But I'm not completely okay with that. But I found a fact pattern in my head that made it more okay than it is for you. So there you go there. Now I'm also like, what is up with her sister? Yeah. I mean, she's married to this guy. He pisses all over the seat. She clearly cleans up after him all the time. She like, all right. I mean, it sounds like she just kind of got up and okay. And she got up and like cleaned up the piss. And it's like you're not mentioning that to your partner.
Is assuming that. Like, I don't think the sister got up to clean up at the get.
She did.
She did.
She did.
No,
yeah.
she.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, she hopped up and went and cleaned up after him. This is a pattern for them. This is not. I don't think we're jumping too far here.
I totally missed that. Thank you for reminding me about that. Oof.
Yeah, and her sister clearly has accepted this part, and one could really make the argument that, hey, if he's there once in a while, and this is part of what we have to deal with in order to have my sister and her husband, who I don't particularly like, but I like my sister, visit, I can deal with it. Like, that's what I would have, like, if she were sitting talking to me, a friend or a client, I would say, like, you're risking ruining the relationship, you're risking causing shame and harm, all these things. Like, I would advise against this course of action, just to be really clear. I would not tell her, oh yeah, that sounds like a great plan. I'd be like, no, don't do that. It's passive aggressive, it's hostile, it's shaming, it's wrong to do. Just like, recognize that you'll have to deal with this. And it's easier to clean up after him than to make a big deal about it. I'm just not willing to, like, I'm willing to be a little bit forgiving of her transgression, more so than my learned colleague.
Well,
so
we can
if we're going to pass a judgment, then Dan, it sounds like
Dan.
it sounds like you're kind of waffling between a soft everybody sucks here, or you're not the asshole, but you owe an apology, or where are you at?
I think everyone needs to change their behavior here. I think this grunt ass man needs to clean up after himself. And I'm sympathetic to the reality that with morbid obesity, it can be hard to aim everything where you need to go and make sure to do it. And there are many people who are morbidly obese, men who will sit down because of that exact problem, because they want to do it. But even if you are morbidly obese and you can see a toilet and know that you've sprayed on it. So like I'm annoyed with him for not doing this. I'm annoyed for the sister, get mildly annoyed with the sister for not, like, telling her husband, like, hey dude, clean up after yourself. She shouldn't have to clean up after him. And I don't want to get mad at her for being in a place that there's a little bit of a victiminess to it, maybe, but it's just like, I want her to speak up, and I want OP to be nicer and to just deal with it. That having been said, I'm not all that mad at her, and I'm just not willing to call her an asshole. She was wrong. She was wrong. I'm just not willing to call her an asshole. All right, Gayle.
Yeah, no, I dial all of that up for me. I am annoyed as the day is long at this brother-in-law. Look, if you are a guest somewhere and you know you have problems with your urination and aiming, sit down to pee. That is not going to emasculate you. I promise the toilet is not going to snap your penis off. Like, some men are so wrapped up in this idea of I can't sit down to pee because it's so emasculating. Like, just sit and keep it tidy, or be willing to use a
I'm
little
with you there.
toilet paper and clean up after yourself. This guy absolutely sucks and is flirting with asshole, because this is a pattern, and he is engaging in this not only at the sister-in-law's house, but especially at the sister-in-law's house, but at home. Like, I have a problem with him not taking responsibility for his adult bodily fluids. What?
You've moved me on that one, and I'll call him an asshole.
Sweet.
All
now,
right,
we're going to deal with his wife. His wife, I agree with you to some extent. Like, this sucks. I think I don't want to victim blame here. And at the same time, she's gotten herself into a really not okay pattern. And I will guarantee you it does not stop at cleaning up his urine.
No.
There are other problematic patterns here that she is taking responsibility for, giving him a pass on. And if she were in my office, we'd be having some real conversations about, adult responsibilities here.
Yes.
Now, the OP. I have a real problem with how OP handled this. There are at least 3 or 4 different direct but kind ways, or kinder ways, that she could have handled this without putting her son in the middle. I really think I'm going asshole. You don't put your child. Yeah, you do not put your child in the middle of this. If you're going to handle it and you want to deflect a little bit, fine, but you don't put the kid in the middle. I think you pull the guy aside differently. You might say, or in a different way, you might say, hey, I know that maybe this isn't how you deal with it at home, but here are the cleaning supplies. Or, or if the sister hops up to take care of it, you go ahead and say, that's okay. Let me just give that to Ryan. He'll take care of it. And we can be real direct, but kind. But you don't put your child in the middle, and you don't shame. I just completely disagree. And I agree with you. I think it's hard not to have shame as a part of the conversation, but I don't think you need to lead with it, and you certainly don't need to direct it. As parents, we're often trying to figure out ways to give corrective behavior to our children without shaming them. And it doesn't mean that shame doesn't come up for them, but we help them work on those feelings and process them and understand the difference between I am bad versus I did something that was naughty or bad. And I think she could have done that with the brother-in-law here. So she's
No, again, you're not wrong. You are absolutely correct.
You're just kinder? When did that happen?
I'm more, no, I'm not kinder at all. I'm more vindictive.
Yes, in this situation, you're being way nicer than me.
No, this is vindictiveness on my part. I'm feeling vindictive towards the brother-in-law for putting her in this situation, and I'm mad at him. And so I'm giving her the jury pardon, not because I'm being gentle with her. Because again, I would, if it were this person sitting with me, I would say, don't do that. Don't put your son in the middle. Don't shame him in front of other people. It's really passive aggressive. Don't do that. Do not. And at the same time, like, there's that vindictive part of me that's like, he deserved it. And I know it's wrong. I know it's wrong.
No, I see your point.
I know it's
agree
wrong
with it, but yes, I see
I
your
know
point.
it's wrong to say that, and that's why I'm sort of issuing the jury pardon.
Yeah.
The case I referenced earlier, literally the defense in this it was a murder case, and literally the defense was he needed killing. And this is in the South, and the prosecutor kind of went, yeah, he needed killing. The person who had committed the crime sort of got off with, the lightest possible sentence you could ever imagine for having killed another human being. It's a great story, maybe for another time. But I will say that like in this case, I kind of feel like he needed shaming, and it was wrong. Don't get me, it was 100% wrong. We shouldn't do that. But I just can't get that as worked up about it as you're getting, and I'm giving her the jury pardon.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying she wasn't an asshole.
I absolutely see that. I think it just hits me morally and professionally
Oh,
wrong.
yeah,
And right. And so I just like, that's the thing. Like, I cannot ever be in a place where shame is okay. And I understand he needed killing. Like, I get it. I just can't get behind it, and I can't advise
to be
it,
clear,
but I understand it.
to be clear, we are not advocating murder.
Right. Absolutely not. Nor am I advocating pissing all over someone's seat and then
Nor are
shaming
we
them for it.
advocating.
But
Nor are we
I
advocating killing.
understand the philosophy.
All right. So we will
All right.
respectfully disagree on this one to
A
some
bit,
degree.
yeah.
Michael, what did the internet?
So the internet was equally divisive. It was really interesting. Like this was one that really came to my attention because of the sheer number of comments. I mean, initially I saw it and I thought of Gayle being surrounded in a house of boys where we've had this
I was
conversation about clean up
totally
after
having
yourself and
some
whatever. So
flashbacks about that.
so
Yeah.
there certainly was that. But the internet was, I mean, really, there were really interesting conversations. But I mean, the three main kind of categories were: you're not the asshole, as a grown-ass man. What you did was hilarious. So they missed the whole shame and embarrassment thing.
But not therapists. We'll give them a pass.
The other one was, you are the asshole, humiliation. You clearly have a grudge against the brother-in-law. You dislike him. You don't, there's no sympathy for his physical condition. You don't really know maybe what went into why he's that way or any number of things. And you've judged him and you've used this as an opportunity to call him out. And then everybody sucks here except for the son. She owes apologies to everyone. The son is 4, by the way. I don't know if that got said in the original post.
Yeah, no, in my head he was 6. So 4, yeah.
But you need an apology for, the brother-in-law needs to apologize for the mess, but the sister-in-law should have to apologize for perpetuating whatever. And then there were like these nuanced conversations about like, immediately we assume that the sister is perpetuating and like covering up, but like, some of the conversations talked about like the kindnesses we do for our spouses for things that they can't do themselves. And,
yeah, he may not be able to comfortably hit the water in the bowl. But again, if you can't do that, you can sit down to pee. But even if for some reason sitting down to pee is problematic, and without getting too graphic, sometimes if you have a shallow, rounded bowl, there can be
issues,
unintended contact that is unpleasant for men. But still, there's nothing that would prevent even the largest I can think of person from going over and just wiping off the seat afterwards. So I
can actually imagine a scenario, and it would have to be like a perfect storm in terms of this scenario for it to work out. But he's a very large man. The bathroom is narrow, hard to maybe turn because of his body habitus, and maybe doesn't sit because it's a low toilet, bad knees. Like, it had to be a perfect storm of just problems for this to be excusable, because then you have this large person who can't bend over maybe to do the cleaning. Now, that is a perfect storm.
I'm really struggling
I think
with
it's
a perfect storm.
I don't think it's likely. Don't get me wrong. I do not think it's likely.
Hard to do.
Not likely, but it is the only scenario in which I could consider going, oh, okay. But then he best be cleaning at home, because that can't be his, primary bathroom at home. So I'm not giving him a pass. I am just simply saying there is a world in which that is possibly a kindness that you do for your significant other, because he literally can't. That would have to be that perfect storm for him to literally not. I'm not saying that's
that's
the perfect storm.
But okay.
And I'm imagining the bathroom in my in-laws' house, when you come in, it's actually really long and narrow, and a bigger person would have, I think, a little bit of trouble navigating it, but they would have to be a significantly larger person.
Right. So
was
there a consensus, Michael, or was it this like triad of arguments and no real full consensus?
I mean, the overwhelming consensus was, you're not the asshole. The arguments in there were more about, overall, like that big idea that you shouldn't, that you weren't an asshole for calling out this mess. Now, the way she went about it, people had problems with. And, you know, Gail, I immediately thought of Atlas of the Heart and the Emotions, Brene Brown, right?
Yeah.
Did
Mhm.
she talk about, I know there was definitely shame in there because she's like a shame specialist, but
Yeah.
was there embarrassment as well? I was trying to figure out if there's a difference
Yes.
between embarrassment and shame and what that was.
Yes, there is a difference. Maybe we'll make that the bonus conversation.
That's a
Okay.
great bonus conversation. Stick
Yeah.
around for the bonus conversation about Brene Brown.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you both very much. I appreciate it. And as Dan said, stick around for the bonus conversation.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits: Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael McBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. McBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
As promised, here's the bonus conversation.
All right. I thought we'd have a quick conversation about Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. This is a gorgeous book, by the way. I love the color. The paper it's printed on is gorgeous and wonderful. And she talks about emotion families, and she has done some research to group them. And today we've been talking a lot about shame and guilt. And one of the commenters also hit on humiliation. And Brene does such a great job of slicing through these, excuse me, while I find the page, to help us understand that there are differences. And using the correct word, I think, is often helpful. Now, I might have to tap dance a minute as I find
Well, here's the
right.
thing. While you're looking for that, Michael, will
Yeah.
you make sure to put this book and that and the page number and all that information in the show notes for our listeners?
I will. Yeah, definitely.
All
Should
right.
be an easy link for that.
Great. Thanks so much.
Awesome. So we're going to go to essentially what is functionally chapter 8, places we go when we fall short, page 132. I'm going to just kind of highlight here what she says about all 4 experiences. She talks about shame. I am bad. The focus is on the self and not the behavior. The result is feeling flawed or unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. Shame is not a driver of positive change. So she gives an example. You get your quiz back and the grade is an F. Your self-talk is, I'm so stupid. Guilt. I did something bad. The focus is on the behavior. Guilt is a discomfort we feel when we evaluate what we've done or failed to do against our own values. It can drive positive change in behavior. You get the quiz back and your grade is an F. Your self-talk is, going to the party instead of studying for this quiz was so stupid, versus I am stupid. Humiliation. I've been belittled and put down by someone. This left me feeling unworthy of connection and disgusted with myself. This was unfair and I didn't deserve this. With shame, we believe we deserve our sense of unworthiness. With humiliation, we feel that we don't deserve it. The student sitting next to you sees the F at the top of your quiz and tells the class, this idiot can't even pass a quiz in here. He's as stupid as they come. Everyone laughs. You feel dumb and enraged. Finally, embarrassment. I did something that made me feel uncomfortable, but I know I'm not alone. Everyone does these kinds of things. Embarrassment is fleeting and sometimes funny. Your teacher is handing out quizzes and you come back from the bathroom with toilet paper stuck to your shoe.
Read more. Not now, but like to our listeners.
Yes. Read more.
Great to really explore this.
Yeah.
And we
Thanks.
did an activity where we spent a summer, basically. I mean, it was school year. I don't know, where we basically
Doesn't
went
matter.
through Atlas of the Heart and read a section of them. And it was really interesting to think of the different nuances of feelings and emotions in a way that like a lot of times we simplify and we kind of mash them together. So I love how Brene really splices them apart.
And helps us use accurate language. And so part of the reason as a psychologist I wanted to do this for my kids is because you'd say, how are you feeling? And you get mad or bad. Like those are not very helpful emotion words, and really wanting to help expand their emotional literacy. And I thought this is a great way to do it. So we kind of sectioned through the book and we would share that. I would read through it, and then everyone would talk a little bit about an experience where they had when they felt that emotion, to help normalize that emotions have function, right?
Mhm,
We all
mhm.
experience them, and also to give them a bit more complex verbiage. And I will tell you, the hardest one for me to get right, even though I know the definition, envy and jealousy, I still struggle.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what the difference is. Check out the book.
Yeah.
She parses it beautifully.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Tune in next week for another fascinating Am I the Asshole debate.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.